collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, fewer tests means fewer cases. Could it move Cyprus up to the green category as far as tourism is concerned?
Because Cyprus has been so good in doing all these tests, we're being penalised by being put in the red country category because we were doing so many tests and finding quite a few positives. Therefore, this now, although not real, will reduce this cumulative rate, and Cyprus will be placed in the orange, even in the green zone quite soon.
And as foreign tourists cancel their visits to Cyprus, the industry is relying on a very successful promotion for local tourism.
The scheme is going very, very well. I have to say that we already have on the books 180,000 bed nights in these 6 weeks.
It's hard enough dealing with the heat wave indoors. What are the health and safety issues for those who work outside?
According to the provisions of the legislation, employers and self-employed persons must measure in the places where they carry out work the parameters that contribute to the thermal stress.
As of Sunday, August the 1st, free rapid COVID tests were no longer available for an awful lot of Cypriots. Now, government testing units were still operating, but only certain groups of people were entitled to make use of them. Joining us to tell us more about that is Professor of Microbiology and Molecular Virology at the University of Nicosia Medical School, Peter Karagiannis. Peter, it seemed a bit strange to me that people who have been vaccinated can still get a rapid test, but people who haven't been vaccinated can't. And surely the people who haven't been vaccinated are the ones who need to find out whether or not they're positive.
Yes, this is an attempt to not force the people who have not decided to be vaccinated yet to be vaccinated, because the government cannot keep subsidizing these people and penalizing the people who were responsible enough to be vaccinated. Therefore, the free tests are now offered to certain groups, including those vaccinated if they've been in contact with a positive case, or if they're worried about some symptoms they may have and they wish to be tested. This is also an attempt by the government to drop the cumulative positivity rate over a 14-day period per 100,000 population, which, because Cyprus has been so good in doing all these tests, we're being penalized by being put in the red country category, because we were doing so many tests and finding quite a few positives. Therefore, this now, although not real, will reduce this cumulative rate, and Cyprus will be placed in the orange, even in the green zone quite soon.
That surely is massaging the figures. It sounds a bit like Donald Trump saying that if we don't test, we won't have any cases.
But this is what all the other European countries are doing.
Why did it take us so long then to decide to do the same thing?
Because we were trying to safeguard the hospitals from an influx of patients, and we were going to be unable to deal with such cases. Look at the situation now. We have quite high numbers of cases dropping at the moment, which is quite good, but we're still seeing hospitalizations of the last 10 days, and yesterday we went above 300 once again, 301, and we've reached 42 people intubated, which we've never had before.
How many hospital beds do we actually have that are set aside for treating people with COVID?
The beds can go up to 400 and if need be much higher. The limiting number of beds is in the intensive care units. There is still capacity, And because of the dropping rate of cases, we hope in the next 3-4 days that we will begin to see a drop in hospitalizations. But the ones who are in the intensive care units, they're there for much longer, some of them for 2-3 weeks. So the intensive care beds will take a while longer because they begin to be vacated, and sometimes they will be vacated because the people will die.
But it does seem to me that we're nowhere near a real pressure on our hospital systems.
We're still managing okay. That's why we're not talking about restrictive measures. Nobody wants them. And imagine, if we had restrictive measures in the middle of the holiday season and the tourist season, that would have been disastrous. So at the moment, the signal is, yes, we are managing with the number of cases is dropping by the day, which is extremely encouraging. And at the same time, the number of people immunized is rising. And in fact, I think we are one of the leading countries in the European Union, 70% immunized with the first dose, 65% with both doses. We've still got a while to go until we reach the 80-85%, which I regard as necessary to deal with the Delta variant. Because whatever we say, this variant needs a robust immune response in somebody who is immunized to be able to shake it off or not be infected at all. So I will be happier when we reach 85%.
Right, which brings us to what we're reading on social media and so on, saying that I know a lot of people who've had both doses of the vaccine and they've still got COVID.
Yes, I think what we need to make clear is that particularly in elderly people whose immune system wanes because of age, they may not respond to the vaccine very well or not at all. And this is quite obvious from the phase 3 clinical trials, which showed 5 to 15%, depending on the vaccine, who got infected when they were taking part in the trials. With the Delta variant, this may drop to the protection rate may drop to 80%. So there is still a possibility that people who are immunized may get infected. They will not have severe symptoms and they will not be hospitalized. But some of those who have not responded, and if they've got underlying health problems, yes, they may well end up in hospital.
And what about the ability of those people to pass it on? Because I remember we spoke months ago and you said the viral load is much less in vaccinated people.
It's lower, although people say with the Delta variant who replicates at much higher levels, you're still shedding enough virus to infect others. That's why I keep saying that even if we are immunized and we are in places where there's a lot of people around, and particularly in enclosed areas, then we need to wear our masks to protect ourselves from being infected. But at the same time, if we are infected, we are protecting the others from being infected from us.
Now, what about the apparent difference yet again between Cypriots and tourists on who has to do what?
Well, this is something I raised with the minister last Monday. I said, they're coming with a safe pass, but some of them may be in Cyprus for 15 days. The younger ones, if they go to Ayia Napa in the nightclubs, they may very well contract the virus, and then they're free to roam around. So now, if tourists are staying for 7 days or more, they have to have a test on the 7th day.
And they have to pay for that test, or we're paying?
And they have to pay. They have to pay, yes. So even in Proteras now, where I am, the pharmacists are offering the test for the tourists.
And I gather that a ceiling of €10 has been set for the cost of a test, but I'm wondering, Pedros, that ceiling didn't apply for the last year or so when the government was paying for these tests, did it? How much were they being charged?
I am not sure. I don't have the figures. They've never given us the figures. They said they've spent €21 million from the beginning of the year for tests. On the other hand, just for information, if people want to shop around, there are labs which offer the test for €5, and there are labs which offer a package for the month, which is much, much cheaper. I've heard somebody is offering €30 per month to do your tests, 2 tests per week. So 8 tests for €30.
All right, now then let's also talk about one of the reasons that I've been told so many young people are shunning the vaccination, and that is information that came out, and it seems to have been sort of poo-pooed now, but not completely, and that is about which vaccines, if any, can affect fertility both in men and women.
Yes, this is a load of cobblers. What I've been saying all along is no vaccine so far that's been used, particularly in childhood, has affected fertility either in males or females. And I've also said that before the vaccines circulated in the preclinical studies, they were tried out in animals, particularly rats and mice. Some of those were pregnant, there was no teratogenicity, and some of them were allowed to breed after the vaccine, and there was no effect on fertility. In fact, there was a recent study only 2 weeks ago where they've studied males before and 75 days after the end of the second dose of the vaccine. They looked at sperm count, morphology and motility, and there was no change whatsoever. On the contrary, there were 8 people with oligospermia, and after the second shot, their sperm count was quite normal. So, if anything, there was an improvement in sperm quality than a negative effect.
Which is, of course, much easier to test in men than in women.
Exactly.
So what about women who are worried, who are becoming...
we do not expect any effect of the virus on the sperm cells or the ova in the ovaries, because they are within the organs, they are inaccessible to antibodies or anything. So the only virus I know that can affect fertility is the mumps virus in men.
So in women, you're still saying that even though it's very difficult to measure, it wouldn't have an effect?
There are cases where women fell pregnant after they've had the vaccination without problem.
So we're now starting to vaccinate children between the ages of 12 and 15, obviously with parental approval.
Yes.
And what effect will that have on the overall figures? Because at the moment, a lot of children, I presume, are they to have safe passes, or they will have to attend school?
Yes, that's true. I think that a lot of parents have been stopping me and asking me when would children be immunized. So now they have the chance to immunize their children. A lot of other countries are doing it. I think this will relieve the pressure in autumn when the schools open, because the children that are vaccinated will not have to do the quick tests to attend classes, and the ones who will have to do it is the ones who are not immunized, and I think in those cases the government will pay for the children to have them free for obvious reasons. And we hope that by doing so we will not disrupt the academic year once again. The schools will operate normally, and these would be particularly important in children which belong to the groups that, because of their medical condition, are more susceptible to have more severe disease. Immunosuppressed children, for example, children who've been through leukemia, and children with special needs. All these children will need to be immunized if the parents consent.
In the meantime, do you foresee even stricter measures for this safe pass? I mean, at the moment it's changed, I think, so that people who don't have one can only meet in places where there are fewer than 10 people. And then we've also got the idea that they have to undergo a rapid or PCR test a couple of times a week if they want to go to places where there are more than 10 people. It really does seem as if they're being singled out. And you said at the beginning they're not being forced to vaccinate, because that would be an infringement of their human rights. But we are actually making it as difficult as possible for them to lead a normal life.
Yeah. I think here the government is saying to these people, look, 75% of the population has been responsible and they've been vaccinated, and therefore the 25% who don't want to, they're actually risking the lives of the 75% and their own, of course, because they choose to do so. And therefore, they don't see why they should pamper them with paying for their test, etc., and the responsible people not be given anything in return. So, yes, if the Safe Pass is applied and it's apparent that the police, the owners of the shops, the restaurants and what have you, check them out to ensure that only people with safe passes enter their premises, then we will not have the chains of transmission we had, which started the present wave. And, even the nightclubs have caught on now, and they say we're only allowing vaccinated people.
Well, it's definitely a bone of contention for many, I know that. But thank you very much indeed for putting us in the picture. And we can only presume that because we're doing so many fewer tests, that yes, we'll end up in the green category, and that of course will mean our borders will open to more tourists, and then who knows what will happen. Professor of Microbiology and Molecular Virology at the University of Nicosia Medical School, Petros Karagiannis. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Almost every day you open the newspaper, there's a new decree about rapid testing, PCR tests, local people and, of course, tourists. And the latest news is that we're expecting a drop in foreign tourists after the latest decree about needing rapid tests for safe passes. Savas Perdios is the Deputy Minister of Tourism. Savas, we thought we'd sort of opened the place up, and now it seems we might be closing it down again.
Hi, Rosie. Let me start by giving a little bit of context in terms of exactly what the decree says. If it's okay with you, I'll speak a bit about the arrivals over the summer months, and then I'll go to your question. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
All right. Well, basically, starting from the arrivals, June for us was the first month after the beginning of the pandemic where we had arrivals above the 20% mark relative to 2019. We were at around 35%, and we were hoping that the arrivals of August and, of course, July as well, which we will know very soon what the official statistics are, we were hoping that we would be close to around 50% of 2019, and I say that because in June we achieved 35% without the British market. So from the moment that the British market opened for us in mid-July, we expect that if nothing else changes, that we might be able to get to 50% of 2019. Now, we have this decree from last week, whose impact, if I'm honest, is not yet entirely clear. I mean, we don't have official information yet from tour operators abroad about how this is going to impact their holiday. There is a chance it will, and I will explain why. Basically, the decree says that the Cyprus flight pass, which visitors from abroad use to get into the country, will be valid for movements across the destination for 1 week only. And from that point onwards, those people who are not vaccinated will require a test every 3 days to access different venues. Obviously, this is something that is also in place for locals, and in all honesty, I do understand why it was requested that tourists do the same after a week of their stay here. The problem with that is that, most of holidaymakers in Cyprus, they have an average stay of 10 days, some even 2 weeks. And perhaps some people who were thinking of booking to Cyprus or had booked to come to Cyprus in August may now be having second thoughts, especially when it comes to families. A lot of summer tourism in August especially is families, and some of these children haven't had the opportunity to get vaccinated in their countries. So I do really hope that it's not going to have a big impact, but there is a chance that it will. So I hope that it will not, though.
Have you spoken to hoteliers? I mean, they are quoted in the press as saying they've already had cancellations, and they surely must be wondering how they can get to the end of the season and stay open.
Yeah, certainly. We've spoken to hoteliers, and they have conveyed their dismay or frustration. I think it's understandable because, as you said in your introduction, it started looking like we're seeing light at the end of this tunnel. As I said as well, June was the first month where we had a decent turnout of arrivals compared to 2019. Okay, 35% is not amazing, but it was the first month where we saw a decent turnout. In total, from January until June, we have now surpassed the number of arrivals we had in the same period last year, and it was finally starting to look like we were going into some sort of normality with regards to tourism. And yeah, there is a concern now that the decree from last week is going to put a sort of a handbrake on that. As the hoteliers have said, there have been cancellations. It's a bit difficult to judge in advance what the total impact of this decree is going to be, but as I said, hopefully it will not be huge.
Now, you did run a discount scheme for residents of the island, and initially that didn't include, I think, August and September, but now it does. But a lot of hotels thought they were going to get the people from abroad and didn't sign up. Are you still letting them sign up from this date?
Originally, it was July and August that were not included, and with the extension, we included as well middle of July until the end of August. So another 6 weeks added on to that. The scheme is going very, very well. I have to say that we already have on the books 180,000 bed nights in these 6 weeks, which is a massive number actually if you think that we're only talking about a 6-week period. Certainly, we're very flexible. Should there be demand from more hotels to be added into the scheme, we're here to reopen it and add more hotels into that. There's no problem at all.
So people, I think, need to go to the website, visit cyprus.com, where there are lists of which hotels and indeed, I think, apartments are taking part in that scheme.
Yes.
Savas Peridios, Deputy Minister of Tourism, bringing us up to date on the latest situation in our tourist market. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
We've had unprecedented hot temperatures this week in Cyprus, and the Labour Ministry has issued guidelines for outdoor work during the heatwave, because of course if you're unprotected then it is a serious health issue. So it's welcome to the programme this week to Evangelitsa Tsoulofta from the Labour Inspection Department of the Ministry of Labour. Evangelitsa, first and foremost, can you outline for us what the rules are? Because I think it's after a certain temperature, then certainly construction workers outside, they have to stop work.
According to the provisions of the legislation, employers and self-employed persons must measure in the places where they carry out work the parameters that contribute to the thermal stress. Specifically, they have to measure the temperature and relative humidity. And according to these measurements, taking also into account the type of the work, they have to regulate their work. And they have to either alternating work or rotate the workers or have a rest period. And in cases that it is, according to these measurements, a need, they have to stop working.
So particularly then, I know this applies on construction sites because obviously they are in the open air, under the hot sun, but some jobs are less arduous than others. So is there a differentiation between how difficult and heavy the work is as to whether or not these rules apply?
Yes, the regulation of the work depends how heavy or light the work is. So, in the legislation is determined according to the type of the work, how often the rest periods should, let's say, be, or whether the work has to be interrupted. So, according to the temperature, the relative humidity, and the type of the work is determined how the work should be regulated.
Now then, I think generally speaking, OEV, the Employers and Industrialists Federation, makes sure that its members certainly are aware of all these rules, but you do occasionally still see workers out in the midday sun when they shouldn't be. So what should people do if they do see a case like that? Should they contact the Labour Ministry? How can you inspect all these different sites?
Yes, of course we inspect these different sites, but as you can understand, it's not possible to be present at every site. So we ask the workers as well as the public that they would like to inform or to refer to something that they have been noticed, they should call us. And we can keep, let's say, if they want to be anonymous, then we can investigate it without referring to the name of the person that informed us about it.
Is there a phone number that should be in everybody's book, as it were, so that if they see an infringement, they can call you?
Yes, I could tell you the phone numbers in each of our district offices.
So there are different numbers then in each district. So yes, please, do give us the numbers.
Okay. For Nicosia is 22879-191. In Limassol, 25827-200. In Larnaca is 248-05316. In Paphos, 268-22715. And in Amohostos, 23819-750.
And how well informed are workers about this law? Because particularly perhaps foreign labourers are not familiar with the rules.
Actually, according to the legislation, it is the duty of the employer to inform, not only inform their employees, but also train them and explain them the measures they have to follow to be protected. Of course, what we do, we organize seminars, and this year we organize a seminar online for people working in private or in governmental organizations, and we inform about the provisions of the legislation. We have also information on the website of the Department of Labor Inspection. We have a Facebook account, and we share on this Facebook account all the announcements that are issued by the department, and these announcements contain the most, let's say, important measures that have to be followed by the employers and the self-employed persons. Also, we have several guides on our website.
So people need to basically go online and look for the Department of Labour Inspection on Facebook, or indeed the Ministry of Labour's website and the Department of Labour Inspection, because at least we are getting these orange warnings pretty well all week this week, which means that the temperature and the humidity are so high that people working out of doors should be shaded, or even perhaps stop work if they can't be under some sort of shade. And of course the other thing is drink plenty of water. Pleasure talking to you, Evangelitsa. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
That is Senior Labour Inspection Officer at the Ministry of Labour, Evangelitsa Tsouloftas. Don't forget to listen back to those numbers if you do see anybody working out in the heat when they shouldn't be. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.